Thanks for downloading Ehnother Podcast from Ehnotherpodcast.com. Today's show can be found in many ways. iTunes, the Ehnotherpodcast.com webpage, and now can be found on Stitcher.com. You can now stream the latest show anywhere with the Stitcher app, on your computer, even on your boss's computer. Ehnother Podcast is now at your fingertips every day of the week and at your convenience. Enjoy today's episode of Warlock Wednesdays. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor. Hello and welcome everyone to another Warlock Wednesdays. This is the Warlock Hour. I am your host Razor, and I have a pretty good show lined up for you tonight. I hope you enjoy it. Or today, whenever you're listening. I'm recording it at night, so I said tonight. But enjoy the show. We're going to start, as always, with the comic book releases for the week. So this week from DC Comics, we have Batman 66, number 2, Batwoman number 23, Supergirl number 23, Superman Unchained number 3, Wonder Woman number 23. And just to correct myself, that was Batman 66 number 2, not 22. Marvel this week, Avengers number 18, which is part of the Infinity series. So if you want to collect that series there, you're probably going to want to pick that up, even if you don't pick up the Avengers titles normally. Also, Dexter number 2 of the 5-part miniseries comes out. Superior Spider-Man number 16. Thunderbolts number 14. And also X-Men number 4. And just in case you were wondering, the Thunderbolts issue number 14 is also a tie-in to the Infinity series, so it is not part of the main storyline, but it is a tie-in to the miniseries. From the independent comics books this week, we have from Dynamite Entertainment, Vampirella number 32, from IDW Publishing, Judge Dredd number 10, and Kiss Kids number 1 of a 4-part miniseries. And that's right, when I say Kiss Kids, this is referring to the band Kiss, as kids in comics. So for you Kiss fans out there, this might be a comic you want to check out. Also from Image Comics this week, Witchblade number 165, a WonderCon exclusive variant cover. Now normally I don't announce variant covers because there's just so many of them and they all come out at different times, but I know that a lot of people like collecting the con exclusives, and this is the WonderCon exclusive for Witchblade number 165. So that is your comic book releases for the week, but I do have a little bit more comic news before we move on to the rest of the entertainment. Apparently in November, all Ultimate titles will be cancelled. They will be replaced with Cataclysm titles, and what the article says is that in November, Ultimate Comics Spider-Man, Ultimate Comics X-Men, Ultimate Comics The Ultimates will be no more. Instead, it will be Cataclysm. This will begin with it looks like a mini-series in November called Cataclysm: The Ultimate's Last Stand, and it'll be a 5-part miniseries. So that will be the beginning of the end of the Ultimate universe, as it were. At least that's how it appears to be right now. So that would wrap up your comic book news for the week. So let's get into some entertainment news. And before I go anywhere with the entertainment news, unfortunately I have to start this segment off with a little bit of a downside. Lee Thompson Young, for those of you who don't recognize the name, he's the current, or was the current star on Rizzoli and Isles, which is a kind of a detective show that aired on TNT. He played, I believe, a sergeant or a detective on the show. I'd never watched the show myself, so I'm not sure. But he's also famous for playing on a little TV show for Disney called Famous Jet Jackson. And that's where I first noticed him, and I thought it was quite an entertaining show. It was kind of like a superhero, but more super spy-esque. And it was really kind of enjoyable. That ran from 98 to 2001. He also appeared in Smallville and Scrubs. Smallville, I believe he played Cyborg in Smallville, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have that information handy. That's just from the old noggin here. Unfortunately, he took his own life, and what has been revealed so far was it appears he has died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. So right now the family is kind of wanting to mourn the loss, obviously, and they want to remember him, and they don't want to put too much out there with the media. They don't want to deal with the media. But law enforcement officials have informed Fox News, not a sponsor, that he sadly took his own life, and it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and that's all that's been released at this time. He was only 29 years old, very young, as far as any actor goes, and any person goes in this day and age. 29 is quite young. It's always hard to know how to react. You're sad because a person has died, but at the same time, you get a little bit angry when a person takes their own life. It's almost a cheat in a way. But as with any celebrity, they're in the limelight a lot, and we see a persona which is put on by almost like a PR campaign. What we see in public is not necessarily what's going on behind closed doors. We don't know his personal life, and we don't know what was going on in his life. I still don't believe suicide is the way out, but that's the way some people take it. And unfortunately, he has passed this past week, and just wanted to take a moment to remember him because he was such a fine actor. Like, as far as a career goes, I think this kid, well, he's not a kid, but he's 29, but he's still young enough that he could still do many movies, many TV shows for the next 20, 30 years, and now that'll be taken away. So, let's move on to some less depressing news. Let's look at the box office numbers from this past weekend at the movies. Now, a surprise #1 hit for me, but apparently not for the thousands of people, maybe even millions of people that went and seen the movie, but I was expecting Kick-Ass 2 to take the #1 spot. Not only did Kick-Ass 2 not take the #1 spot, it floundered in its opening week, and well, let's just take a look at the list. #1 this week, Lee Daniels' The Butler. That's correct. And that's what happens when you have probably one of the most well-known talk show hosts in the history of talk show hosts, Oprah Winfrey, plugging this movie on her own network, and that's a double entendre, because it is the Oprah Winfrey Network, her own network, the entire time, because it was her quote-unquote first big silver screen appearance in many years. Well, honestly, who cares about Oprah Winfrey's acting? She's never been able to act, in my opinion. But apparently a lot of the older generation, and when I say older, I'm talking anyone over the age of 55, has rushed out to see this movie. Now, people younger than that have gone out to see this movie, but generally speaking, and I can only speak for my personal theater, I did not see barely anybody under the age of 55 in the film. Like, in the theater. So, this movie came in at #1 with a $24.6 million opening weekend take. That's pretty big for a movie that only cost $30 million to make. So it will definitely reach its budget and go beyond. #2 this week was also #2 last week, We're the Millers, bringing in another $17.9 million. And then 3, 4, and 5 were very close, separated by only $354,000. That's not a lot of money when you consider how much tickets cost. So #3 was Elysium, which was previous week's #1 at $3.6 million. #4 was Planes with $3.38 million, and Kick-Ass 2 falls to the 5th spot with $13.3 million. So that's a $500,000 difference, or sorry, a $50,000 difference between Planes and Kick-Ass 2. Kick-Ass 2 made $13,332,955 in its opening weekend, only averaging $4,535 per screen. And when you look at the #1, excuse me, when you look at the number one movie that made $8,400 per screen, which were both in the approximate same amount of theaters, with 2,933 screens for Lee Daniels as the Butler, and 2,940 screens for Kick-Ass 2. When you factor all that in, Kick-Ass 2 didn't even make half of its budget. The budget is listed at $28 million. It probably will reach that, but it's not going to go a lot over that. I don't know how well this is going to do as an overseas movie. It has a later release in a lot of overseas markets. Currently, the foreign market totals are only at about 6 million. So worldwide, this movie has only made about 21 million. So it's not going to miss its budget, but it's kind of disappointing. I enjoyed the movie. I went and seen it. It was maybe not as great as the first one, and it's always hard to live up to a first one when you're a sequel, especially when it was such a unique movie when Kick-Ass first came out. So Kick-Ass 2 had a lot to live up to. I thought it was good. I thought it was enjoyable, entertaining, and all that. But apparently the general public did not agree. Now, part of this could have been hindered by the fact that when it came time to promote the movie, one of the lead stars, and not Kick-Ass or Hit Girl, which are obviously your lead characters, but one of your big name stars, Jim Carrey, refused to do any publicity for the movie because, as he said, he did not want to promote gun violence. Now, I'm all for not promoting gun violence, especially on a young audience, which is not where the movie was geared. I mean, it was rated high enough that you had to be over 14 years of age to see the movie, but that's still young. However, when you sign a contract to make a movie, there are obligations. And I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure Jim Carrey lives in a world where it is easily accessible to know what kind of movie he's getting into. This was a sequel. It wasn't like it was a first one. It wasn't like he signed on to do Kick-Ass and then it came out the way it did. No, we had seen Kick-Ass. We knew what it was about. And the sequel was obviously going to be more of the same. And when you sign on the dotted line, sometimes you gotta swallow the pride and do the publicity and not be a Bruce Willis. So, have to see what happens there. Number 6 was Percy Jackson, bringing in another $8.7 million. Jobs, another floundering movie in its opening weekend, finished 7th with $6.7 million. It made half of its budget because the movie only cost $12 million to make, according to this. And that just seems a little low because Ashton Kutcher seems to be a guy that maybe commands a little more. But I believe his contract for this movie was a lot of back-end stuff. So basically, if the movie does well, he'll get paid well. If the movie tanks, well, then he doesn't get paid so well. And maybe that's the kind of contracts we need actors to sign more and more of, because maybe they'll do a better job in a movie. Number 8 this week was Two Guns with $5.8 million. The Smurfs 2 was 9th with $4.7 million. And rounding out the top 10, The Wolverine came in with $4.5 million. Now, there was another disappointing movie this week. As I said last week, there was 4 movies opening this week. Well, the 4th one didn't even crack the top 10, which is very surprising to me when you consider who's in the movie. The movie's name is Paranoia. The stars, Gary Oldman, Harrison Ford, Liam Hemsworth, and Amanda Heard. Now, that sounds like a winning cast right there, in my opinion. However, again, maybe word of mouth, or maybe lack of interest, or maybe the fact that there was just so many movies coming out this week, it was just hard to break into that top 10, and it only made $3.5 million, landing in the 13th spot. That's only 10% of its budget. So it's got a ways to go and a tough hill to climb if it's going to reach that budget. So that is your top movies for this past week. So what's coming out in the week ahead? Well, you're listening to this on Wednesday, and if you're listening to this podcast early enough, maybe you could go check out The Mortal Instruments, City of Bones, because that opens today, Wednesday. Opening happen all the time in the summer, and this Wednesday opening is no different. Mortal Instruments, City of Bones, based on a book series, and from some accounts, the book series does not even compare to the movie because the book seemed a little bit drab and drawn out until the later stages. However, the movie looks fantastic when you're watching the trailers. Now, that's not to say the movie will be fantastic, but it looks fantastic. So, I guess we'll find out how it does this coming weekend. Also coming out on Friday is The World's End, which is the third part of the Ice Cream trilogy, which is written by Edgar Wright, starring Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. And of course, the other movie coming out this week, You're Next, a little horror movie thrown in the summer, always gets the teenagers to come out just before school goes back. So let's move on to some other entertainment news. For those of you horror fans out there, the roster for ABCs of Death 2 has been revealed, and this of course is a kind of short film based letters where they create short films based on letters of the alphabet, and different things happen, and they're kind of just quick little things, 26 little segments, 26 different directors. So I do not have all of the directors, but some of the key directors that have been announced are Marcus Dunstan, who did The Collector, Alex de la Iglesia, who did Last Clown, Alejandro Bruges, which did Juan of the Dead, Todd Rohal did The Catechism of Cataclysm, kind of a tongue twister there, and Julian Barat of The Mighty Boosh. And also 20 other filmmakers will work with this crew to bring you the ABCs of Death 2. Now, they are also holding a competition for the 26th director. So they have 25 lined up, and they're going to hold a competition for the 26th director. Now, I'm going to post a link in the description below, so you'll be able to check that out, because they did this with the first film, and they're going to do it on Facebook, and you'll be able to submit your work, and I don't have all the details, but all the details will be in the press release that I link, and you can check out the little video that describes the competition, and I'm not going to play the video because this is a podcast. You can't see the video, you can only listen to it. So I'll let you listen to it on your own, and I'll put the link below because maybe somebody doesn't really care about this. And for those of you that do, you can check it out below. So, moving on, Simon Pegg this week went on a tour of the Marvel Studios, and while he was there, as one does when you are a big geek/nerd, you take pictures of anything and everything you can. Well, one of these pictures that he tweeted out on his Twitter account showed a picture of him standing next to an Avengers poster, and he kind of has his arms folded and his index finger on his, I guess that would be his left hand, is pointing towards the character Ant-Man. Now, as soon as this picture hit the Twitterverse and the internet, fan people went nutso, thinking that Simon Pegg was hinting that he was going to be playing Ant-Man in the upcoming Edgar Wright-directed film Ant-Man, which doesn't stretch too far out of the realm of possibility when you consider that Edgar Wright has cast Simon Pegg in many of his movies. However, and they're also very good friends. However, this unfortunately is not entirely true. Simon Pegg went on Twitter as the Twitterverse blew up, and he said that, well, I'm not going to say exactly what he said, because, but he put FFS, and if for those of you who don't know, that's, for fuck's sakes, the internet. All I did was point at the central character in my dear friend's next movie because I'm excited for him. And that's the only quote part of that tweet you need. He was doing it, and this is the first thing I said. I'm like, well, no, he's probably just throwing a nod to Edgar Wright, because, as I said, Simon and Edgar are very good friends. They've helped written the trilogy movies of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and the one upcoming World's End, which has already been released overseas, and as far as I know is doing fairly well. So it's hard to post a picture these days where things are implied and then blown out of proportion because of the way the internet works. But at the same time, as a person who's not only a fan of Simon Pegg, but of Edgar Wright's work, who also directed the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, I would not object to Simon Pegg being cast as Ant-Man. He's already played brilliant characters in playing Scotty, and I forget the character's name, but he played the computer whiz in the Mission Impossible films. I mean, he could pull the character off. He can play Hank Pym / Ant-Man. I just don't see it happening. What I see more likely to happen is that Simon Pegg will have more of a cameo role, just kind of a tidbit to throw himself so that Edgar can put his friend into a Marvel movie. And that's more what I think it's going to be about. Speaking of Ant-Man, Edgar Wright was interviewed and asked whether Ultron was ever going to be a factor in his film. And he said, "It was never in my script, because even just to sort of set up what Ant-Man does is enough for one movie. It's why I think Iron Man is extremely successful, because it keeps it really simple. You have one sort of, the villain comes from the hero's technology. It's simple. So I think why that film really works and why sometimes superhero films fail or they have mixed results is because they have to set up a hero and a villain at the same time, and that's really tough. And sometimes it's unbalanced. I think that's very well put, and Ant-Man will kick off Phase 3 of Marvel's cinematic universe, which will be after the Avengers Age of Ultron. So I think why people were asking is because it was after that Ultron could technically also be in Ant-Man, but it makes no sense because we've already been informed by Joss that Ultron will not be created by Hank Pym as he is in the comics, which left a lot of fans upset because things were being changed, and all I say is, in Joss we trust. But at the same time, it does make sense in the scheme of things, the way the Marvel Cinematic Universe has worked, that Iron Man does create Ultron, because he's always creating new suits, he's always trying to do different things. People have hinted that could it possibly be Jarvis gone crazy? I hope not, but it's always plausible for anybody who's tinkering around with robotics to create something that will eventually turn on its masters. Think of the Terminator franchise. Humans created robots to do most of the jobs, and then the robots took over because of Skynet. So, I mean, it happens all the time. Why not have Tony Stark create Ultron? He's an egotist. It makes sense for it. So, that's what Edgar Wright had to say about why Ultron is not in the upcoming Ant-Man movie, which, of course, is not even slated for release until 2015. November of 2015, so late 2015, so long wait still to go. Alright, for those of you who like Joseph Kosinski's work, and if you don't know his work, recent movies that he's done are Tron Legacy and Oblivion. He has decided that he wants to take a shot at directing a Twilight Zone movie. Now, this movie has been in the works at Warner Brothers for a long, long time. Originally, Matt Reeves was going to direct it, but now he's doing Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. The original Twilight Zone series ran for 5 years back in 1959, and then obviously came back in the 80s with a couple of movies. But it looks like that DiCaprio's Appian Way production, that's Leonardo DiCaprio's, and Warner Brothers are going to team up and possibly have Joseph Kosinski direct a Twilight Zone movie. So I'm looking forward to that. For those of you fans of the Ted movie, Ted 2 is slated to come out in 2015 during Passover time. For those of you who don't know what Passover is, it's around, I believe, April. Well, it varies, I believe. But it looks like it would be an April 3rd for that year, because Easter sometimes falls in the end of March, beginning of April. Well, it's going to be around April 3rd of 2015. So that's when Ted 2 would, as of right now, be scheduled to release. Moving on, Seventh Son, which was to be released by Warner Brothers, will now be released by Universal Pictures. Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures kind of had a divorce. Legendary Pictures was always releasing their films through the Warner Brothers banner. Well, now they've signed a deal with Universal Pictures, so the movie Seventh Son will now have to wait for a release date, because as the papers get signed, as Legendary Pictures and Universal Pictures come together, they need to figure out a date. Now, the movie was originally slated for January 17th. They may just move it back a few months, but it will have to wait and see where things fall. So that's what's happening with the Seventh Son. Now, as far as Legendary Pictures is concerned, they are still involved with the upcoming releases of 300: Rise of an Empire and Godzilla, which is coming out both of these are coming out in 2014. The first one, 300, in March, and the second one, Godzilla, in May. They're still involved with Warner Brothers with that, but their plans for the Warcraft movie will be submitted to Universal and will be released through the Universal logo, as will their movies they want to do a Hot Wheels movie and a couple of movies based on Mass Effect and Cyber. So they are submitting all their deals that they were going to submit to Warner Brothers to Universal and see where things lie there, trying to get green lights. All right. The Farrelly brothers have announced a Dumb and Dumber 2 contest. The contest rules for winning a walk-on role in Dumb and Dumber 2. You first have to make a Vine recreating a scene from the original Dumb and Dumber, but put your own spin on it, and use the hashtag Dumb2, and that's Dumb-T-O, because they're so dumb they don't know how to spell the number 2, so we can see them all. Yeah, I know what a hashtag is now, and this is the Farrelly brothers saying this. You have until September 15th of this year to post that Vine video, and after September 15th, Bobby and Peter Farrelly will pick the winner. The winner and a friend gets to be a walk-on in the film. So for those of you who are fans of the original Dumb and Dumber starring Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, will get a chance to have a walk-on role in the sequel, the real sequel, not the stupid prequel that came out in 2003, again starring Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels. So, for those of you who are interested, be sure to fill out your application in a sense. History Channel will be doing a Houdini miniseries. Now, Houdini, for those of you who are living under rocks, is noted as one of the world's greatest magicians and escape artists of all time. They are running a miniseries on the History Channel, and it looks like they have announced Adrian Brody will be playing the magician Harry Houdini. Also announced is that Kristen Connolly, who was in House of Cards and The Cabin in the Woods, will play his wife Bess. So this miniseries will trace the arc of Houdini's life from desperate poverty to worldwide fame, and will be co-produced by Lionsgate and Annie Studios. Now this is slated, I believe, sometime, I'm going to say next year, but they don't have a release date yet. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as far as things go. Now, I think Adrian Brody will probably do a very excellent job. He's a very good actor, and because it's a mini-series, it's always got more time to work. Moving on, Universal Studios has decided that they want to adapt the comic series Daymen. Now, for those of you who didn't know, the movie Two Guns was actually based on a graphic novel by the comic book company known as Boom Studios. Well, Boom Studios is also the comic book home for Daymen. Now, here's the little synopsis of Daymen. For thousands of years, the world has been controlled by the 50 Families, a secret network of vampire covens engaged in timeless contests of power. But when the sun rises, the vampires are forced to employ the services of a human who acts as their daytime fixer. Trained for centuries to be the mortal soldiers' employers, the daymen go forth at sunrise alone into the world to do the bidding of their sleeping benefactors. Now this sounds fantastic if done right, and also casts vampires in the true light that they should be, and that is out of the sun. So we'll have to see where things go there. Universal did very well with Two Guns. Now looking forward to doing well with another comic book series. The Kitchen Sink, which is a genre-bending comedy, is what they're calling it. The storyline follows a human, a vampire, and a zombie as they band together to take on an alien invasion. Well, they've added 3 actors to this cast. Now, this cast already has Mackenzie Davis, Nicholas Braun, Chris Zilka, Josh Fadem, John Cusack, Keegan-Michael Key, Ed Westwick, Dennis Leary, and Vanessa Hudgens. Well, they've added some names. Bob Odenkirk from Breaking Bad, Patton Oswalt, and if you don't know him, you can check out many of his movies and stand-up routines, and also Ian Roberts from Arrested Development. So 3 big actors, well, not maybe big actors, but 3 well-known, or more well-known actors than the list I just rambled off, are on board for this movie, Kitchen Sink, which will be slated for an October 24th, 2014 release. Moving on, Christina Hendricks has signed on to the cast of Dark Places, which is based on a novel by Gillian Flynn. This movie already has Charlize Theron, Chloe Grace Moretz, Nicholas Hoult, and Sterling Gerrans. Gerrans? Not sure. And it will be directed by Gilles Paquette-Brenner, and I believe this is also a 2014 release, but again, no release date given in here, so I would have to look that up, and I'm not going to because that would take too much time. Moving on to more development news, Sony Pictures, Ubisoft, and New Regency Pictures are deciding to develop the Sony computer entertainment game Watch Dogs. Now, this game hasn't even been released yet. It won't be released till this holiday season on the Sony PlayStation 4, and they're already now talking about making a movie. Now, this game has a lot of hype. A lot of people are looking forward to it. A lot of people want to get their hands on it and want to play it. The people at the production company say the themes and open gameplay of Watch Dogs lends itself perfectly to the big screen. The game has intense action and adventure, but the story focuses on information and the control of information, which we think will lead to an exciting thriller. It has tremendous potential as a motion picture, and we're thrilled to have the opportunity to work closely with Ubisoft's internal creative team on the development of the project. So they think it sets up perfectly for a movie. I've only seen a couple of trailers. It doesn't interest me as a video game, but as an action thriller, possibly. We'll have to see where things go. A comment that was on Twitter, once again, suggested that Fantastic Four and the X-Men could share a universe. Here is the initial quote. Without question, I think you have to see some of these guys showing up in each other's movies. I think the most exciting thing in superhero movies until the Avengers came along was when Nick Fury showed up in Iron Man. Even though it was a guy with an eye patch, it was really cool. And I expect we'll see more of that. Now, since then, obviously, people were expecting, are we going to see a Fantastic Four, X-Men crossover? Like I said, it is so hard in this day and age of technology to not have people blow things out of proportion, especially on the internet. But Mark Millar, who I believe is in charge of doing the Fantastic Four reboot, or at least part of it, let's see. He's a creative consultant for the reboot. has gone to Twitter and clarified his comments. He says, they exist in the same universe, but movies stand alone. There is no crossover planned. Now, he says planned because right now there is obviously no crossover planned. We haven't even seen the Fantastic Four reboot, which could be a complete and total flop. So, it's possible in the future this could happen, and Fox is all about keeping properties right now. They do not want Disney to have these properties back, so they will continue to make movies whether they are good or bad anyways, in my opinion. Moving on to other X-Men news, it is official. X-Men Days of Future Past has wrapped production. Now, that's not to mean the movie's done. It now goes into post-production, which means editing, visual effects will be added, like the CGI and stuff, cutting the movie, shortening it, putting scenes together, everything that goes with that. All the post-production will now get full bull into the future, where May 23rd, 2014, we will get to see X-Men Days of Future Past. But as far as principal photography and productions are concerned, they have wrapped. That means people go home until it's time to promote the movie, or on to other projects, of course. So moving away from movie entertainment news, let's get into some other entertainment news. For those fans of Orphan Black, the second season will contain 2 new non-clone characters. This means characters that will not be played by Tatiana Maslany. I'm probably screwing up that last name. But they will actually be 2 new characters. Now, Pastor Johansson is the more important sounding of the 2, of course. This character will be the leader of the Proletheans, of whom Helena's master, and Helena was the psycho one that was trying to kill all the clones. For the spoilers, I mean, the series has been over for a while now, so sorry. This was the master that Tomas was a devotee of. Tomas was the one that told Helena to kill all the clones. The other character is going to be a guy named Cal, who's described as ruggedly handsome, adaptive, and extremely well-connected woodsman who possesses the heart of a lover. Now, there's been some rumors that this will be a love interest for the character Felix. Now, for those of you who watched the show, Felix had a sort of on and off fling with the mortician, and apparently that morgue guy will no longer be maybe part of Felix's life, or less a part of Felix's life in the upcoming second season. Guess we'll just have to wait till next year to find out. Gaming entertainment news. Gamescom has been going on since early last week, and the 2 big releases coming out, Xbox One and PlayStation 4, confirmed some titles that will be available when these systems launch. So Microsoft's Xbox One had 20 titles confirmed, or over 20, and they said they are targeted to be available at the Xbox One launch. However, they did not reveal the release date for Xbox One yet. The launch titles include Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Battlefield 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, Crimson Dragon, Dead Rising 3, FIFA 14, Fighter Within, Forza Motorsport 5, Just Dance 2014, Killer Instinct, Lego Marvel Superheroes, Loco Cycle, Madden NFL 25, NBA 2K14, NBA Live 14, Need for Speed Rivals, Peggle 2, Power Star Golf, Rise Son of Rome, Skylanders Swap Force, Watch Dogs, Zoo Tycoon, and Zumba Fitness World Party. The PlayStation 4 titles, first of all, PlayStation 4 announced a launch date at Gamescom. They will launch on November 15th, 2013 in North America, and November 29th, 2013 in Europe, and including Australia, Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Russia, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK. So that covers pretty much a lot of the area on November 29th, and that will also include a lot of the Latin American countries as well for the 29th. So if you live in Canada and the US, you can get it on the 15th. If you live pretty much anywhere else in the world, you're going to have to wait 14 more days. Or, order it from the US and hopefully you can convert it. So the games that they're targeting for their launch are actually very many. There's a total of 15 Blu-ray disc titles being developed. They are looking at about 33 titles that will be available by the end of the year, but the launch titles include NBA 2K14, Call of Duty Ghosts, Skylanders Swap Force, Need for Speed Rivals, Battlefield 4, Madden 25, FIFA 14, Killzone Shadowfall, Drive Club, Knack, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Watch Dogs, Just Dance 2014, Lego Marvel Superheroes. Also, in development, Diablo 3 from Blizzard Entertainment will be playable on the PlayStation 4. Destiny from Activision, they are making this is what's in development. Mad Max from Warner Brothers, Witcher 3, The Division, Dragon Age, Shadow of the Beast, The Order 1886, Infamous Second Son, Rime, Helldivers, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and Resogun. So those are just ones that are in development. Now, they're not entirely sure that they're going to be available at launch, but at launch, the ones I told you will be available, and another, it looks like probably 20 or so titles before the end of the year. So lots of title announcements for the two major companies. Now a bit of fun news from the entertainment industry. Something I found interesting anyways. The amount of money actors earned for playing superhero roles. So we're going to start at number 21. Christopher Reeve earned $250,000 in both Superman and Superman 2. So in total, for the entire 4 movies, he only made $3.7 million. Now, you have to remember these movies started in the late 70s, early 80s. So, inflation maybe makes that a little higher, but that's how much he was paid at the time of the movie. Number 20 was Michelle Pfeiffer, which earned $3 million for playing Catwoman in Batman Returns. Now, a lot of people think that that's probably the best movie Catwoman. I'm going to stick with Anne Hathaway. Number 19, also $3 million, was Jennifer Gardner for Elektra, which, kind of a box office bomb, so it's a good thing she wasn't paid too much more, otherwise it would have been even a worse bomb. Nicolas Cage earned a reported $7.5 million for Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Maybe they should have taken some of that money and got a better script. Ryan Reynolds earned $9 million for the Green Lantern, and again, I repeat, should have taken some of that money and made a better script. Because, let's face it, that was the worst part of that. Wesley Snipes earned an estimated $10 million for Blade 2. Now, this is estimated because this was what was revealed as part of his tax conviction when he went up for that. This was what was released through the tax files, and unfortunately his whole life was torn apart because of tax evasion and stuff. But that was made for Blade 2. Number 15, George Clooney earned $10 million. I can't talk tonight. Earned $10 million for Batman and Robin. Now, there was a lot of things wrong with that, and even $10 million probably couldn't have fixed that movie. So why not give it to George? He at least apologized for being a bad Batman. Another Batman that earned $10 million, number 14 on the list, Michael Keaton earned $10 million for Batman Returns. Now, he was reportedly due to earn $14 million to play Batman in Batman Forever, which would have been the third one, which we all know ended up going to Val Kilmer, but he declined due to the fact that he didn't like the direction that the franchise was going in. Maybe a smart move on Michael Keaton's part. Ben Affleck earned $12.5 million for Daredevil, another movie that could have used some of that money for a better script. Maybe these studios should be paying out more for better scripts instead of for horrible actresses or actors. Because the reason why I said actress is because number 12 on this list is the horrible actor, in my opinion, Halle Berry. Earned $12.5 million for Catwoman, one of the worst comic book movies ever made. So, and she actually won the Razzie Award that year for Worst Actress. Number 11 on the list, I Am the Law. Sylvester Stallone got $15 million for playing Judge Dredd in a mockery of the Judge Dredd comic. Entertaining as it was, definitely wasn't a Judge Dredd movie. Number 10 on the list, Keanu Reeves took home $15 million for each of the Matrix sequels. He earned $10 million for The Matrix and $15 million for The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Returns, or I don't know what they were called, just because they were so bad. Well, not so bad. The first one was amazing. The second one was eh. The third one sucked. So, it's just crazy. Number 9 on the list, Marlon Brando, for his very small appearance in the Superman movie as Jor-El, earned $16 million for that role. And when they adjust for inflation, Warner Brothers has said that in today's dollars that would be close to $55.5 million for essentially 2 weeks of work. Not bad. Number 8 on the list, Tobey Maguire for Spider-Man 2 earned $17.5 million. Again, they might have looked at earning the script. Now this is kind of a future one. Scarlett Johansson will earn $20 million to reprise her role as Black Widow in the Avengers 2. And this, she can thank Robert Downey Jr. partially, because Robert Downey Jr. held out on his contract until his co-stars got better contracts of their own. So $20 million for Miss Johansson to reprise her role as as Black Widow for the Avengers 2. Also in the $20 million club, Hugh Jackman earned $20 million for X-Men Origins Wolverine, one that definitely needed extra money to work on the script, because X-Men Origins Wolverine was the worst X-Men movie made so far. I still went and seen it because, well, it's Wolverine. Now, this isn't one of the big superhero movies, but it was a superhero movie, and he played a superhero. But Will Smith, the $20 million man who makes $20 million on almost every movie, it seems, was paid $20 million to play Hancock. Funny, entertaining movie. Did well. $620 million in box office revenues. So, can't really blame that. And like I said, Will Smith was a $20 million man at that point, making $20 million for most of his movies, so it just makes sense that he would make $20 million for Hancock. After Earth, though, we might dump him down a little bit. Or they should. Number 4 on the list, Arnold Schwarzenegger earned $25 million to play the very horribly acted Mr. Freeze. So, yeah. But again, maybe not necessarily bad Arnie acting, more so the script. Let's face it, Arnie's not a great actor to begin with. Mix that in with bad script writing, and you have a recipe for disaster. Christian Bale earned $30 million for The Dark Knight, so, that was definitely well-deserved. And Dark Knight Rises, I don't know how much he was paid for that one, but I like The Dark Knight better. Robert Downey Jr. earned $50 million for the Avengers. Now, he wasn't paid $50 million. It was just Robert Downey signed a contract that basically gave him a percentage of the movie's total gross. Well, the Avengers went on to become the third most successful movie of all time, hence the $50 million paycheck for Mr. RDJ. And the number one person on the list, you would have thought it would have been RDJ with that $50 million, but no, Mr. Jack Nicholson earned $60 million to play the Joker. Now, his contract with Warner Brothers, in order to get Jack Nicholson to play the Joker, which was very iconic and way up until Heath Ledger played the Joker, and they're still both very different Jokers, so I classify them as equal footing, just one played it very insane, one played it very comedic. Warner Brothers had to agree to give Nicholson top billing, even over Michael Keaton, who was playing Batman, which was the title character. He also got percentage points on the movie's gross, plus a special deal that gave him royalties on all merchandise. Now that doesn't happen very often, and so $60 million to play the Joker in Batman, pretty impressive. And one last little bit of entertainment news that I almost forgot about. Something that just came to me recently, but way back when we were watching the first trailers of Iron Man 3. Now, I'm only mentioning this because there's been lots of postings recently about Iron Man 3 being released onto DVD, and a lot of people complained about the whole character of the Mandarin. Well, way back when the trailer was first released, where we first saw, quote-unquote, the Mandarin, aka Sir Ben Kingsley with the rings and the look and everything, Marvel Entertainment and Marvel Studios said, no, Ben Kingsley's not playing the Mandarin. Well, they told you, right from the get-go, that Ben Kingsley wasn't being the Mandarin. So why all the backlash when it was revealed that Ben Kingsley was not playing the Mandarin? Maybe you should have thought back a little bit. Maybe you should have said, hey, wait a minute, they told us he wasn't playing the Mandarin. But no, you had to backlash and say, oh, it was so bad because he wasn't the Mandarin. Well, no, the Mandarin was the other guy in the movie. He was the Mandarin. Can't think of his character name right now because I didn't pull up any articles, but it was played by Guy Pearce. That's who the Mandarin was, not Sir Ben Kingsley. So maybe you should think before you speak sometimes. I'm just saying that again, like I said, because a lot of things have been coming out since the DVD release is coming out, and I know it's way late for the actual movie, but the DVD is coming out, so it's fresh in some people's minds. But there you go, folks. Why am I saying Warner Brothers? They don't make those movies. Marvel Entertainment told you that it wasn't the Mandarin, that Ben Kingsley wasn't playing the Mandarin, so you have no reason to gripe. So, let's take a little break, and we'll be right back with some sports.
Hi, I'm Rob Succhetto, and you're listening to Ehnotherpodcast.com. Hi, I'm Rob Succhetto, creator of Zombie Portraits. You can check out Zombie Portraits at zombieportraits.com.
Thank you, Rob Succhetto, and as always, remember, if you want to check out Rob's work, you can go to zombieportraits.com. So let's move on to the sports section of this podcast. And I know I lose some of my listeners maybe at this point, but you know what? It interests me, and that's why I keep doing it. So first up on the sports agenda, last week I talked about the whole Russian Olympics and the anti-gay laws in Russia. Well, this past week, the Russian women's 4x400 meter relay team at the World Championships won the gold, fending off the United States at the end. Well, two of the athletes, now I'm probably going to pronounce these names wrong, I'm sure they're probably not listening, but if they are, I do apologize. Ksenia Rezhova and Tatiana Ferova shared a kiss on the winner's podium in response to Russia's anti-gay laws. Also, earlier this week, two Swedish athletes painted their fingernails in the colors of the rainbow, showing support for gays and lesbians. And, of course, bisexual and transgender, like the whole LGBT community. This could be bad for the athletes, but is a good stance leading into the Olympics that will be taking place in a country that has very severe anti-gay laws. We'll have to wait and see if there's any fallout for the two particular athletes that shared the kiss. I can tell you in one picture, one of it's four women, because it's a 4x400 race. The two middle women kissed. The one on one end looks disgusted. The one on the other end looks perplexed. How the Russian people or government will take this will remain to be seen. Moving on to NFL news, Von Miller of the Denver Broncos will miss the first 6 games of the season due to a suspension. He was suspended Tuesday for violating the league's substance abuse policy, citing a person informed of the negotiations. So this is not a sponsor, but the NFL Network, NFL.com, reported that Ian Rappaport, who's on the NFL Network show NFL Total Access, got the story, and it was initially going to be an 8-game suspension, but they decided to go for 6. So he will miss the first 6 games of the Broncos season, and that could hurt the Broncos defense, as he is one of their best defensive players by far. So we'll have to see how the Broncos do defensively without Miller's absence. Derek Wolfe and Champ Bailey are suffering injuries, so the team is kind of hurting in that. They've also lost Elvis Dumervil in free agency, so the Broncos defense might not be as sturdy as they were last year. So maybe that Peyton Manning-led offense will have to be a lot more prolific than maybe they were at times last year, where they relied on some of that Orange Crush defense. Kansas City Chiefs have acquired A.J. Jenkins in a trade with the 49ers. I'm not noticing in this little piece here of who was traded. It was just a blurb that I saw, and I thought it was interesting, mostly because Alex Smith, who is a former 49er himself, is also with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he has stuck up for his former 49ers teammate and said Jenkins was buried on Jim Harbaugh's wide receiver depth chart in San Francisco, and Jenkins never managed a single catch during his deeply disappointing rookie season. However, Smith went on to say he saw Jenkins as a hard worker who never got his chance, and it could be a change with him coming to the Chiefs. And if they could hook up, hey, you never know. This could be a good thing for the Chiefs, but we'll have to wait how the season goes. All right. As with last week, we're going to take a look at some of the happenings that came out of the preseason for Week 2. The Miami Dolphins lost starting tight end Dustin Keller for the season. He had a gruesome knee injury and will miss the entire season. So if you had Dustin Keller in your fantasy football league rankings, you may want to take him out. Washington Redskins lost backup quarterback Kirk Cousins to a mid-foot sprain, and Pittsburgh Steelers rookie running back Le'Veon Bell also suffered a foot injury. The Steelers hope Bell would have started in Week 1, but now those plans might have to change. Victor Cruz, DeAndre Hopkins, E.J. Manuel, Quentin Couples, Blaine Gabbert, Champ Bailey, and Wes Welker all suffered injuries of varying severity over the weekend. Some players will be ready for Week 1, some players will not. So, let's take a look at some of the quarterback battles. Michael Vick had another great preseason game in his outing. He outplayed Nick Foles beautifully. It looks like Vic has locked up already the starting position, even though he pretty much had it. As I said last week, it was his position to lose, and he's shining so far in the preseason. Blaine Gabbert looks like he is going to lock up the starting quarterback position in Jacksonville. A thumb injury will keep Gabbert out of practice, but he is expected to be the starter for Week 1. Over in New York, Mark Sanchez did nothing to change the quarterback battle in New York. It is still Geno Smith versus Geno Smith. Pretty much, it looks like they're leaning towards Geno Smith starting, because Geno Smith has outshone Mark Sanchez so far in the preseason, and Sanchez is not doing anything to change the coach's minds at this point. Over in Buffalo, well, it looked like E.J. Manuel was definitely on his way to becoming the starter, and I, as a Bills fan, was definitely pumped for it. Well, little knee injury is going to set back E.J. Manuel's time. It looks like Kevin Kolb, who struggled a little bit, might have to be the quarterback for the first few weeks of the season. Now, this is a minor knee injury. It's not going to keep him out all year. It's the 4 to 6 week kind. Now, 4 to 6 weeks means if he's ready in 4, that means he can practice in 4, which means it'll be week 2 of the regular season, which means he won't be able to play until week 4. Now, if it's the 6-week rehab variety, he probably won't be playing till mid-season. Not good for the Bills, who are going to have to rely on that dual attack rushing game so much the defenses will be able to outplay them. We'll have to see where things go, and maybe EJ will be able to come back, hopefully at full health. I'd rather not rush him back because he is looking like he could be the quarterback of the future for the Buffalo Bills. I know they've said that so many years. Being a Buffalo Bills fan, I know that every time they draft a quarterback, they say, quarterback of the future, quarterback of the future. So far, none of those quote-unquote quarterbacks of the future have panned out. Some of them, in fact, have gone on and done nothing anywhere else either. So, quarterback of the future, my ass. EJ Manuel has looked really good so far, and I really want to see him play in real game situations against full first-line defenses to see what he can do, and I think he could actually be a quarterback for the future. Looking at the rookie running backs, because there's quite a few of them coming into the league this year, Eddie Lacy looks like the Green Bay Packers running back for years to come. He's earned a huge role to start the season, but possibly as the team starter, but Jonathan Franklin might have something to say, although he's not really had the impact that the coaches in Green Bay have wanted so far. Over in Cincinnati, Giovanni Bernard looks like he could be the starter over in Cincinnati. Rookie Monty Ball has been playing well over in Denver, but not as well as Ronnie Hillman. So it looks like they could be sharing time. Now, Monty Ball, his biggest issue right now is providing the blocks that are needed for the quarterback when he's in a blocking situation and not running the ball. That's stuff that can be fixed. Injuries to, as we said earlier, Le'Veon Bell over in Pittsburgh could force him to not be the starter, but he looks like he will be the starter when he's fully healthy. This is kind of an injury where it's touch and go. He could be ready, he might not be. They have to wait and see. Alright, depth chart moves. As I said, San Francisco 49ers traded A.J. Jenkins to the Kansas City Chiefs for John Baldwin. I forgot to mention who he was traded for, but Baldwin has the better chance to make an impact in San Francisco, and A.J. has a better chance to make an impact in Kansas City. It's a trade for both teams that it looks like it doesn't really matter. They were lower depth chart receivers, but going to the different team, the change of venue, the change of location, the change of attitudes could help either or both of these receivers succeed. So wish them best in their new teams. The 49ers also announced that Mario Manningham will remain on the reserve, physically unable to perform list into the regular season, which will mean he will miss at least the first 6 weeks, at which point the 49ers could bring him off the list or IR him for the rest of the year. So again, for those of you fantasy players out there, having Mario Manningham on your list might not be such a good idea at this point. Cowboys backup running back Lance Dunbar is out 3 to 4 weeks, and rookie Joseph Randle looks like Dallas's backup for the season. DeMarco Murray is, of course, the starter. Cleveland has acquired right guard John Moffitt from the Seattle Seahawks, and this will give them a starting position where they had lost 2 starters to free agency. So that is the wrap for this past week. One other note, Victor Cruz of the New York Giants could be out anywhere from a few weeks to the entire year. They're waiting back on X-rays, or X-rays were negative, but they're waiting back on second opinions just to make sure that he will be able to go at some point this season. Moving on to the baseball news. Let's check the standings. Over in the American League, we have the Boston Red Sox with a 74-53 record, leading the AL East. In the AL Central, it is the Detroit Tigers with a 73-52 record, and in the AL West, it is the Texas Rangers with a 73-53 record. Your two wildcard holders right now in the American League, Tampa Bay with a 72-52 record, and the Oakland A's with a 71-53 record. Moving over to the National League, your NL East leading Atlanta Braves have a 76-49 record. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Pirates of the National League Central have 73-51 record to lead that one. And in the NL West, it is the LA Dodgers with a 73-52 record, with the two wild cards being held currently by St. Louis at a 72-53 record, and the Cincinnati Reds with a 71-55 record. Taking a look at some statistics over in the baseball leagues, your average leaders currently: Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers with a .359 batting average, Yadier Molina of the Cardinals with a .336 batting average, Chris Johnson of the Braves with a .334 batting average, Mike Trout of the Angels with .333, and Adrian Beltre of the Rangers batting .326. Home run leaders, still Chris Davis of the Orioles with 45. Miguel Cabrera 5 behind him still with 40. Edwin Encarnacion of the Jays, Pedro Alvarez of the Pirates, and Paul Goldschmidt of the Diamondbacks, all with 31. Your RBI leaders, Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers with 120, Chris Davis 5 behind him in the RBI category with 115, Paul Goldschmidt of the Diamondbacks cracks the 100 mark with 100 RBI so far, and Edwin Encarnacion of the Jays and Brandon Phillips of the Reds each with 92. Stolen base leaders, Jacoby Ellsbury has 44 for the Red Sox. Everett Cabrera, who, as I said many times so far, of the Padres, is done for the year, still in second place, though he will be passed shortly, I'm sure. Also, Rajai Davis of the Jays and Jean Segura of the Brewers. So that's Everett, Rajai, and Jean, all with 37 steals. Starling Marte of the Pirates has 35. Your ERA leaders, Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers with a 1.80 ERA, Matt Harvey of the Mets with a 2.25 ERA, Felix Hernandez of the Mariners with a 2.41 ERA. Also, Hiroki Kuruda of the Yankees has a 2.41 ERA. Patrick Corbin of the Diamondbacks has a 2.45 ERA. Your wins leaders, Max Scherzer is pulling away from the pack with 18 wins for the Tigers. And then you have Bartolo Colon of the Athletics, Matt Moore of the Rays, Francisco Lariano of the Pirates, Adam Wainwright of the Cardinals, Chris Tillman of the Orioles, and Jordan Zimmerman of the Nationals, all with 14 wins. So like I said, Max Scherzer is pulling away from the pack with 18, 4 more than his closest competitor. Strikeout leaders, 214 for the man, Yu Darvish of the Rangers. Matt Harvey of the Mets has 187. Max Scherzer of the Tigers has 185. And then Felix Hernandez of the Mariners and Clayton Kershaw of the Dodgers, each with 182. Your saves leaders, Jim Johnson of the Orioles and Craig Kimbrell of the Braves, have 39 saves. Joe Nathan of the Rangers has 37. Mariano Rivera of the Yankees has 36. And rounding out the stats is Greg Holland of the Royals with 34 saves. That concludes the statistics, that concludes the sports section, and that is another week of the Warlock Hour here on Ehnother Podcast Network. I hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to check out all the shows here on Ehnother Podcast. That's Mondays with Ehnother Podcast, Real Tuesdays with Real Music on Tuesdays, and of course, me, Warlock Wednesdays, Razor here with the Warlock Hour. Check us out on Ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. You can find us on iTunes. You can also find us on Stitcher.com. And remember to like the Facebook page. Also check out old episodes on YouTube. So those links will be below. Hope you enjoyed the show. Come back every week, listen to a new show. And that's it. I am out. Thanks for listening to Ehnother Podcast from Ehnotherpodcast.com. Don't forget to go on iTunes and or download right from Ehnotherpodcast.com. That's EHNOTHER podcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at Ehnother Podcast. Be sure to check back for tomorrow's show only on Ehnother Podcast, your Canadian podcast network. Ehnotherpodcast.com. Not a sponsor.